Today we're going to talk about the American with Disabilities Act and the codes that are applicable to that. There is a national code and a state code. We go by it's called the TAS, T-A-S, Texas Accessibility Standards, and it will tell you everything you ever wanted to know about making your building compliant for people with disabilities. And the disabilities are for people in wheelchairs, on crutches, blind, deaf. You have to take into account all of those things. And they talk about reach ranges, wheelchair clearances. When you're, and we'll go through this in a second, when you're a blind person going down the hall, there can't be protruding objects, so there's rules about that. Every public building has to follow these standards. In Texas, any building, any construction job that's going to cost more than $50,000, which is just about anything, has to register with the TAS and get a. The easiest way to do it is to get a TDLR inspector that reviews your plans and then goes out and inspects the job to see if you've built it in compliance. And if you haven't, they report it. And then they file all the paperwork with the state. You can get the state to do it, but it's harder. You pay professionals for a reason. Just like you wouldn't want to represent yourself if you were on trial, you'll hire somebody to do this as well. But we still have to be very familiar with it and understand all of the codes. So what the plan is I'm going to go through this, and this is on your, I'll show you in a second, it's on Canvas. We're going to thumb through this Texas Accessibility Standards, and then, I don't know if we'll start this today, depending on how long this takes. You're going to divide into 3 groups, and y'all are going to do a code compliance check on this building. So you're going to be walking around the building and you're going to be measuring things as a group and deciding whether this building meets the standards or if they need to tear it down and start over. So on Canvas, pull that over. Hold on. Why isn't this? There's our web page, our Canvas page. Under Files, you want to just look through this, and you may have to look through this for your test, so that's why I'm showing you it. Under Codes, TAS Complete is the file we're going to be looking at. I'm not going to open it here because it takes longer for it to load. I already have it opened from a PDF here. So here is the table of contents, and you can click on this, I think, and go to different pages. It starts off with why they do this, and we're just going to, like I said, kind of thumb through it, and then it goes into specifics. The purpose is it sets standards for accessibility to public buildings and facilities, privately owned buildings and facilities leased or occupied by state agencies. So it gives you the reasonings. Bringing the State Architectural Barriers Act into alignment with the scoping requirements for the standards of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which really is why, the federal government forces you to do this so the state regulates it. So that's their authority. Talks about the difference between adults and children. If you're doing a school for youth, you have different height requirements than you would for adults. So it depends on the primary users of your facility. Talks about, for instance, reach ranges. Someone in a wheelchair on a frontal approach, meaning if they're wheeling up to the counter front ways, they can only reach 42 inches max, I believe, is what that says. Or side would be 48. So whatever's, they have to be able to control, the light switch, the faucet, whatever's on that counter, it has to be within those reach ranges. Talks about ramps and stairs, the tops of the handrail, gripping surface has to be between 28 and 34, or older children 30 to 44. I'm not going to read through all this, but it goes through elevators, drinking fountains, urinals, lavatories, mirrors. Everything has a range so that the people that are in wheelchairs or disabled can use whatever facilities everyone else is using. bathtubs, shower stalls, etc. It talks about, these are just miscellaneous instructions and definitions, terminology. Like I said, you can know where to refer to this. Talks about, what different words mean when it talks about it, whether it's occupiable, is a room or enclosed space designed for human occupancy in which individuals congregate for amusements, educational, similar, operable part, path of travel. One thing that like a lot of clients will try to do is if you have, they'll say, well, call that space a closet, and then it doesn't have to be ADA compliant. Well, it does have to be ADA compliant. It's an occupiable space. The only thing that wouldn't have to be ADA compliant is if it couldn't physically get in through the closet. If the door was too little or it was too shallow. But if they can get their wheelchair in there, or if they can get in there and the door shuts, they better be able to get out, because it has to be ADA compliant. So anyway, these are just all of the different terminologies. I'm not going to go through it all. Talks about what things have to be accessible. Talks about parking here. If your total parking lot has 1 to 25, you need one space minimum to be ADA compliant. If the parking lot is 201, and it goes on down the line, tells you how many have to be ADA compliant. And this is above and beyond the local code. The local building code probably will agree with this, but this takes precedence. If this says you need more, or else you won't get your certificate. Let's see. I'm just going to talks about telephones. If you provide them, a lot of people don't provide telephones anymore because of cell phones. But if you have them, you have to have one per floor, stuff like that. Whatever the general rule of thumb is, if you're providing something for general use, it has to be ADA compliant. So you can't just provide something for Group A and not Group B. Assembly, this is talking about assembly spaces. If you're in an auditorium or a cafeteria or even a classroom, if the capacity to seat is 4 to 25, you have to have one desk or space for a wheelchair. You see now that like the ballpark or something where there's a space usually at the top where a wheelchair can sit. So it's by the count. Let's see. Anything, when you're altering anything, like an existing building, if it's not ADA compliant, unless you change it, you probably don't have to worry about it just yet unless someone files a suit against you. If you have a restaurant that's open to the public, and we've all been in these, they have these rinky-dink little bathrooms, or they're old, and if you go in there in a wheelchair and you can't get served, or you can't go to the bathroom, technically you could sue and force them to fix that. A lot of people, there's people that go around actually doing that just to make money. But that doesn't mean it's right. But I think the law says, if you're going to provide a service, you better be able to provide it to everybody. As it stands now, definitely when you change your building, if you remodel it, do anything, whatever's new has to be compliant. So, and it's a good idea to make the old compliant. And they don't make you, like if it's an historical building or some sort, they don't, if you can give a reasonable effort and do something to make it more compliant, they'll usually pass it. That's where the local inspector comes in. You have a good relationship with them, and they'll say, yes, you've made a good faith effort. We don't want you to ruin the integrity of this 500-year-old courthouse, but we see that you're trying to do this and that, and so that's good enough. Let's see. All the pictures are in the back, so this is all just words. I like the pictures. Here's a good demonstration of space allowable and reach ranges. So if you have a clear width for a single wheelchair, has to be a minimum of 36 inches, and the door opening has to be 32 inches. That means, there's usually a little, if you look on this door back here, that 32 inches is, if this door was open all the way, is the space that they can go through. It's not outer to outer, it's the actual, because if that's like 30 inches, they'll just get stuck. You know, I can't get out. so it's the clear space. And then if you have a two-way hallway, it's going to be 60 inches. Here's a picture of, takes an average of 60 inches of a diameter of a circle for a wheelchair to be able to turn around and go the other direction. You can also do the T-shaped turn. They show examples of that. These are just, they show different maneuvering clearances. Here you can see when you have lavatories and water fountains, you have to have clear floor space. So there's got to be 48 inches down here for this guy to wheel up and be able to do something from the front, like drink water. It's showing it there, like getting soap out of the dispenser. Parallel approach, it's a little, it's 30 by 48. So a lot of times when you're drawing your plans, you'll dash these in if it's very important so that they can see you're complying. Here's like an alcove, what would be required of those spaces. Here you can see the reach ranges we're talking about. She can only reach up to about 48 inches. If the light switch is much higher, she can't reach it while still sitting. So that's what they're talking about, a reach range. Or over the counter right here. The X shall be less than 25 inches when such and such is such and such. So you have to abide by all of these ranges. And really, I mean, I find it's just easier when I'm doing a commercial type project. Just make the whole thing that way, because why not? Just why try to be difficult? So just make sure this is your guidelines for how you're going to reach. Here, a guy is 54 inches high, and they can only go down. There's a lower reach range too, because the wheelchair is an obstruction. Accessible routes, that's going to be part of your inspection. All walks, halls, corridors, aisles, sidewalks, tunnels, general circulation routes, and other spaces are part of an accessible route shall comply with section 4.3. And don't worry, this tells you don't have to refer to this book when you're doing this. I think it has most of the parameters in there. It says you should have at least one accessible route within the boundary of the site, blah, blah, blah. So here it talks about the way that turns are made. You have to have a minimum of 48 inches before they make a U-turn. And this is changes in level. You can't have more than a 1/4 inch change, vertical change like that, because a wheel could not get over that, or it might be a tripping hazard to someone that's blind. If it's slope, it has to be 1 to 2. So it goes well into detail into everything. I'm just giving you here's a view of the like the visually impaired. This can only stick out 4 inches, or else if he's walking down the hall sticking his cane into the corner trying to find the edge, but that sticks out more, he's going to slam his face. So you don't want that. And then it gives clear widths, and it shows like this would be a telephone. He's got it's 27 inches up, and then he can use the phone. So talks about stairs. I think was it this class or my MEP class? There's something under the stairs in the in this exit stairway over here. There's a planter, because if you're blind or in a wheelchair and you get too far under here, you'll knock your head. So you have to have a cane detection area of some sort. Talks about vending machines. Even those have to be within the reach range. Talks about ground and floor surfaces. Carpet. You can't have, if it's a public building, you can't have big shag carpet, because you can't roll a wheelchair over that. It can only be a maximum of 1/2 inch. Talks about, you know, if there's grates in the floor and how they have to be oriented. Talks about parking, you know, the exact size of your parking spaces for ADA compliance. You have to have room because you park, and if you park according to the law, you park in the direction of traffic, right? So that means the driver's on the traffic side. So you have to, if you're doing parallel parking, you have to be able to come in so there's space enough there for them to get out and get in their wheelchair without getting run over, and then come over here up the ramp. Access aisle at a passenger loading zone. You know, you have to have room for them to stop there as well. Talks about curb ramps. Additional slope shall not exceed 1 in 20. Adjoining slope 1 in 20, and this is a 1/4 inch per foot, I believe. Here's some little pictures. You have to flare the edges because they need to be able to come up and then turn and keep going. They can't have to come up, go all the way over there and keep going, like unless there's room, is in this case. But usually you want to flare the edges either out in the street or within the sidewalk itself. And this is just a little demonstration or picture of the traffic. Yeah?
On the flaring,
Uh-huh.
is that by just like aesthetic purposes, or is there a reason why you would flare it out or within it?
I think because it makes it, they can turn the corner. They don't have to go, you know, all the way up and then turn over the curb. So the flaring makes it more accessible.
Right, no, but I mean like flaring in or out, that's just to whoever wants
Oh,
to
yeah.
there.
Yeah, it's whatever you, if there's room in the street, there may be some reason, you know, why you can't do it in the street because there's not room. So, or if your sidewalk's not big enough, you would do it in the street. So. Okay. Talks about ramps, the slopes. The maximum rise and run shall be 1 in 12. Talks about landings. You have to have a certain landing length shall be a minimum of 60 inches clear, and that's so the people can turn around and go back the other way if they want to, because that relates to the 60-inch diameter circle. Here's just a picture of a ramp, and you can only go so far before you have to provide a landing, so that, you know, you can't just make them go up 200 yards. They'll get out of, they won't be able to make it that far. They have to be able to stop and rest for a few minutes. There's rules on the railings. If you're over a certain height above the ground, you have to provide a railing, and those have to be certain heights and certain widths, so the widths, because you know, some people have arthritis and they can't hold on tight, so they have to have a certain, or they can't grab big things or little things. It has to be just right. So, talks about stairs. There's rules for stairs, the risers, and the nosings. Different terminology, and you can read through this if you're interested. Handrails have to be on both sides. This is what they're talking about. A riser is what goes up. The nosing is the part that sticks down or sticks out above, and then you got this little inset. Talks about the usable tread area. Here's appropriate layouts for stairs. You'll come in, you'll go up, and you'll go up again, and you have to, you know, there has to be certain dimensions for that. That's what I'm trying to say. Your handrails have to extend past the last step so that, you know, you still have something to hold on to when they get up here, and past the bottom step. Elevators have to be compliant. Has to be in Braille for the visually impaired. All the buttons have to be within the reach range. You have to be able to turn around in the elevator, so your elevator has to have a 5-foot diameter circle in it. Here's you know, vertical dimensions for the buttons and the things that you'll need. Now this one, let's see, maybe you don't have to have the 5-foot, but you have to be able to maneuver in there, so it can't be too small. I think, though, that I thought it had to be, you had to have the 60 inches, but maybe not. Maybe if it's longer one way, you can do like the T-turn. see. There's again reach ranges on your elevators. They have to be able to reach it. Windows, if they're operable, they have to be ADA compliant, so everybody can open them and shut them. Doors, of course, have to be ADA compliant. Only so much pressure should be allowed to open the door. It talks about there the force of opening the door. An important part, this is important as far as when you do your architectural plans. If you're a clear doorway width and depth, so the minimum is 32 inches, so that's from edge to edge. You can see that clearly in that drawing, or the edge of the door to that has to be 32 inches. So if you're coming from the front approach of swinging doors, if you're coming toward a door that's swinging out towards you, you have to have a clear space of 60 inches plus the 32 plus the 18, which is usually, that's 62, so it's usually a 5 by 5 square. And what that allows is the wheelchair to come over here, pull the doorknob, open the door, and go through. If you're having a front approach of a push-through door, they don't need as much space because obviously they just have to push it open. They don't need to get to the side and let the door swing around them. This is a pull from the side. They have to have enough space to, if they're wheeling along this way, pull it and go through. Push from the side, they don't need as much space. And then here's another latch side. Latch side is where the door is opening towards you. Push side is obviously you're pushing through it. So those are things architects have to be really familiar with in laying out their doors and make sure they always have the right clearance at every door. If you have double doors, you have to have a minimum of 48 inches before you get to the next one, or they have to be arranged like this. Drinking fountains, here you can see how the wheelchair goes underneath the fountain. They have to be able to, has to be a certain height. They have to be able to, reach the water, and the lever has to be at a certain pressure, stuff like that. So here's another, the area that has to be clear in front of the water fountain. You can't, on water fountains, you cannot just provide the low water fountain for the wheelchair. Because then, if you got a tall person with a bad back, they can't bend over that far. So you always, that's why you see high-low water fountains. So, what? But so water fountains, you usually have to have two. You can't just give the low one. Toilets, of course, when you're laying out those, there's all kinds of rules. Front approach, side approach, you have to have clear space. The lavatory can't encroach onto that space because there is space underneath the lavatory so you can still maneuver. The point is to be able to get your wheelchair, get on the toilet, and then get off the toilet without crashing into everything. And you got your grab bars. There's certain dimensions for all that. All of this has to be explicitly laid out on your plans and detailed, or you will not pass. Toilet paper has to be a certain height off the floor, anything and everything. This talks about different stalls, stall arrangements. You have to generally try to make a stall, one of those big ones where the wheelchair can get in there and do a 360-degree turn. You can do it like this if you are, tight on space and you get special permission. You've also got ambulatory, meaning people can walk, but they may need canes or crutches. So you'll have a stall that's skinny, but it still has the guardrails or the handrails so that they can hold themselves up and maneuver inside. Urinals have to be a certain height as well. Lavatories and mirrors. Here you can see again, they're coming in under the lavatory. The pipes always have to be insulated or covered up. That's what that little dotted line means. Because if you got hot water going down the pipe, you don't want it to burn their legs, and they won't know it because they can't feel it most likely. So this is just showing the reach ranges this person can see into the mirror. So the bottom of the mirror is no more than 40 inches above the floor. And that's a plan view of the sink Bathtubs, if you're providing like at a hotel or a hospital or something, you have to have compliant bathtubs. And this is just showing the different arrangements you could do for that. Shower stalls as well. Obviously, the best thing is to have a roll-in shower if you're going to have one. So it's just a gradual slope. They can roll in there and take their shower and roll out. You don't want them having to step over stuff. But again, the controls have to be at a certain height. They have to have grab bars. If they can walk, you want them to be able to hold on to things. So a lot of it's in the toilet rooms and all of that stuff. If you're having closets, they have to be able to reach the shelving and the hanger bar. There's your dimensions on your grab bars or your railings. Can't be more than 1.5 inches, can't be less than 1.25 inches. So they give you all of that. Alarms, detectable warnings. Alarms are basically on your fire. We have the siren that will go off. We also have the strobe light if you're deaf. What do you do if you're deaf and blind? And yeah, I guess you just smell the smoke and leave. But you got to have something for everybody. Detectable warnings on walking surfaces. For instance, if it's going to change slope or height, you have to have some sort of warning strip there so they can feel the difference. Signage has to be able to be reached in braille so that people can feel it at the door edge. And it has to be at a certain distance from the door. I think it'll show that in a minute. Has to be illuminated if necessary. So your sign has to be 60 inches off the floor, 8 inches from the swing or the opening side of the door, the latch side, and it has to be in braille. If you have telephones, you have to make them, some of them, compliant. Here's a demonstration about how telephones would work. Fixed or built-in seating, like at a diner or a restaurant, you need to have some areas where a wheelchair can have the same view as everybody else and the same amenities. Assembly areas, that's more about seating. You can just see the seating arrangements. Used to be you could line them all up on the top row, at the mezzanine level, but now new places are being built. They want them to be able to have lower seats if they want them. So you have to spread them out now on new buildings. What's that? That's just different reach ranges, dressing and fitting rooms. It goes into everything. It's just ridiculous. But like cafeteria line, this guy has to be able to, move his tray along, reach the silverware, reach the napkins. Medical facilities, business, let's see, libraries, you have to be able to reach the books. What's that? Accessible transient lodging. Okay, if you have like a motel and you have 25 rooms, you need to have one room that's made accessible. And that just, if you have more than that, you need to have more rooms that are accessible. It just goes into, the shower, the sleeping areas. Transportation facilities like bus stops has to have accessible routes. Again, it's just talking about, let me see, reach ranges, etc. Protruding objects, you can't have things sticking out into the hall. We already talked about that. More on parking, more than you ever wanted to know, but you have to know it. Hardware has to be accessible. You can only have a certain amount of pressure. Doors have to be levers. Those are lever handles on that door. You can't just have a knob because someone could not easily grab that and turn it. They need to just be able to basically swoosh at it and make it open. Here's a demonstration again about why the toilet's configured in that way, so they have room to maneuver themselves onto the toilet, and then get off. Showers, vending. At the end of it? Oh, okay, good. So it's really kind of, I don't know, it's necessary but boring. So who's not here? Juliet, Carlos, or Caleb? I don't know if we'll start this today, but let's at least look at it. Just throw it at you. Okay, so like I said, we're going to, let's look through this, and then probably we'll do it on, this is a checklist for existing facilities put out by the American with Disabilities Act. And you can read all this. It's not meant to be the official code, but it's a guideline if you have to go look at something and see whether it's ADA accessible. Like I said, it's not a code. It has priorities. The first priority is approach and entrance. I'm looking on the page 3. Second priority is access to goods and services. Third priority is access to the restrooms. And the fourth priority is any other measures necessary. So how do you use this checklist? You have to get organized. You establish a time frame, blah, blah, blah. We're not really concerned with that part of it. We're not going to do floor plans. You're just going to walk around and check this stuff off. This is what you're going to do. You're going to conduct the survey. You're going to take copies of the checklist, a clipboard, a pencil or a pen, and a flexible steel tape measure. With 3 or more people surveying, one person numbers the key items on the floor plan to match with the field notes taken by the second person, while the third takes the measurements. Be sure to record all dimensions. As a reminder, questions, I'm on page 3. Is that, yeah. Questions that require a dimension to be measured have the little measuring thing by that. Think about each space from the perspective of people with physical, hearing, visual, and cognitive disabilities. Noting areas that need improvement. You want to summarize the barriers and solution. List barriers found and ideas for their removal. Consider the solutions listed beside each question and add your own ideas. Consult with contractors if you don't need to do that. Make decisions and set priorities. Review the summary with decision makers and advisors. We'll review them when you come back. You'll give your suggestions. Maintain your documentation, and then you make changes. So you flip over to page 4, and it says priority 1, accessible approach and entrance. So you'll go to whatever the primary approach is to this building. You need to see people with disabilities should be able to arrive on the site, approach the building, and enter as freely as everyone else. At least one route of travel should be safe and accessible for everyone, including people with disabilities. So you're going to find out, is there a route of travel that does not require the use of stairs? So can someone get out of their car and get into the building without having to go upstairs? Then is the route of travel stable, firm, and slip resistant? So you need to walk along it and see if you think you might slip and crack your head or whatever. Is the route of travel at least 36 inches wide? So somebody has to measure that, and you record it there. Can all objects protruding into the circulation paths be detected by a person with a visual disability using a cane? So imagine you're walking down this thing with your cane, and if something's going to bonk you in the face, can you feel it with your cane first? Right? So, do curbs on the route have curb cuts at the drives? Curb cuts are the ramps. Parking and drop-offs. So then you just go through everything, step by step. And this will make you look at the whole facility. Let me just see. So we will answer questions about the accessible route and approach, parking and drop-off areas. We need to. Now you may not know Well, you can count, like our parking lot is that one over there, right, by the water tower. So you can count those spaces and see if we have enough disabled spaces. So, is the the entrance questions, you can do that. I'm just seeing if there's anything that won't really apply. Access to goods and services. So this is on page 8. Ideally, the layout of the building should allow people with disabilities to obtain materials or services without assistance. Horizontal circulation. Does the accessible entrance provide direct access to the main floor, lobby, or elevator? Figure that out. And do all of these things, doors, do they comply? And if not, what are your suggestions? Rooms and spaces. Now, if there's classrooms that are open when we do this, you can go in there, but don't disturb classes. Only disturb these 3 classes. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to disturb some math class somewhere. So when you go into the classroom, is this a 36-inch aisle? Is there a 5-foot circle somewhere that a wheelchair could turn around? Emergency egress, you got to look at that. Signage. Are the classrooms labeled? Is the exits labeled? Is the bathroom labeled? Controls at the elevator. All of this stuff you should be able to check off in some sort of fashion or another. Usability of the restrooms. Now, obviously, girls will go in the girls and boys will go in the boys. See if they're compliant. This probably will take, in fact, I think we're going to go ahead and get started today because I think this will take more than one class period. So why don't you try, let's see, I've only got 3 tape measures. Huh? How many people do we got here today? Well, that's all I got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're missing 2 people, right? Well, Juliet's disabled anyway, so she'd be a good guinea pig. We're missing 3 people. So who wants to be, who wants to work together? I'll let you choose, as long as you're compliant. We're going to have 3 groups. Eventually there will be, if the other people show up, there's 11, so we'll have 2 groups of 4 and 1 group of 3. Shall I just number you off? There's 1 group of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to go with them, May? Or do you want to? Well, actually, I want 3 groups starting today. So, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Y'all 2 like to work together, right? Y'all just want to. Who is it that usually works with you? Caleb? No, I mean, there's like when you have more than 2 people. Y'all are making this too difficult. You like the guy at the end?
No, we had him.
Which one? Which guy is that? Ishmael? Okay, so you want to work with them? Okay. So there's one, and then y'all can start a group, and then we'll add some people next time. So just go out till about 5:15 and get as much done as you can, and come back and check with me. I'll be in my office. Or if you have questions, sorry. And bring me back the tape measures. Can't keep them. Okay? And then we'll finish this on Wednesday. I'll see you at 5:15.